This is a very interesting story about the hidden album that's worth $2 million. And it's actually Wu-Tang Clan's Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. And this was actually recorded within, I think it was 2007 to 2013. There was supposed to be FC Barcelona players on it and a lot more. And guys, listen, we do hip-hop content on the daily. Thank you guys for coming in. If you guys haven't already, subscribe and let us know what you think about this whole concept, by the way. And let us know, let's say 2 features you would want to see on this whole album, because we usually ask those sort of things. So, Lou, take us through the rest of it.
Yeah, so it's pretty wild just because, no one's ever really done this type of concept where you make one album and it's recorded completely in secret. And it was to the point that, the whole thing was orchestrated by RZA, who's of course the leader of the Wu-Tang and the main producer, and his protege named CilvaRingz. So they had this idea to make an album in secret and to only make one copy to this album.
Fire.
And that's what they did. In 2014, they pressed one single copy onto a CD. And then once that was done, they put this really prestigious box. That was the packaging for the album. I don't know if you've seen it, man, but it has like silver encrusted on it.
It looks beautiful.
You have the Wu-Tang Clan logo. It's actually a really crazy sight to see. And what they ended up doing with this box and with the album itself is that they put it and they secured it at a vault in a hotel in Morocco, just so that nobody would ever be able to know where it is or what are the contents in that box. So what's crazy too about this album is that when they were actually recording it, the Wu-Tang members themselves, Ghostface Killah, RZA, all of these guys, they had no idea that it was meant for a Wu-Tang album. They thought that they were making an album and spitting verses for a CilvaRingz album. And they were all apparently recording their verses separately, and then it was kind of collaged together. So it's pretty interesting to see, kind of the creative process behind this. And the whole concept stems from the idea that RZA and CilvaRingz felt like the art and the value of music has kind of been cheapened by the whole streaming era. And they took their frustration, and with that, they made, the sentiment of art kind of return to music. Mm-hmm. So they followed up by kind of showcasing this to a room of 150 people. And in this room, you had art dealers, you had collectors, you had some critics as well. And they played 13 minutes of the 2-hour album. And apparently there was kind of mixed reception, okay? So one critic had said that it was one of their best albums ever and that it was kind of comparable and on the same level as Enter the Wu-Tang, the 36 Chambers album, which was their debut. But another critic said that it was nowhere near worth $2 million and that it was kind of maybe a publicity stunt just to kind of get the hype going and get the market value up. So what ended up happening was that in 2015, they took it to an auction house called Paddle 8, and they started to see if there were some buyers interested. And one guy who was interested was Martin Shkreli. Have you heard of this guy?
Big Pharma dude, right?
Big Pharma dude, really corrupt guy. And, he had a meeting with RZA, who kind of didn't know anything about him at the time. And he spoke to him about being a big hip-hop fan and that he was a big Wu-Tang fan. And RZA became comfortable enough to kind of finish the deal and sign it off. So Martin Shkreli had bought in the album in 2015 for $2 million, and he held on to it. But there were some clauses, okay? So this album couldn't be commercially exploited until the year 2103.
Okay.
And you're allowed to listen. You're allowed to play it at listening parties, but and he also could have put it out to the public for free use, but he couldn't put it out for commercial uses. And what's crazy too is that Martin Shkreli got arrested for securities fraud and a bunch of other charges in 2018. So now this album is actually in the hands of the Department of Justice. So we may never hear this thing, man.
Wow, Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, damn. I'm not to listen to it though. Like, obviously Martin Shkreli said, fuck everyone, I'm going to keep this vaulted and you guys can't hear none of it, and that sucks. But even at that, like, How do you get an album just as good as 36 Chambers when like they're just plugging in verses? Like that's the thing I find sketch.
I don't know, maybe through the production, because you have like maybe those kung fu samples coming back and that sort of thing. I think that storytelling was a big part of it. And we mentioned earlier that there was apparently FC Barcelona players that were featured, so maybe they had some interludes in
like
Spanish.
That's why like it's just like it's weird. It feels like a folk tale at this point.
It does.
Like, how are you gonna have like if a critic is listening to this and saying that it's on the level of 36 Chambers? How the fuck is there FC Barcelona players on it? Like, it literally makes no sense. But hey, I guess for the sake of the tale, we'll say it's all real. But I would wonder, who do you think out of the FC Barcelona players were on that album?
I don't know, man. Maybe Messi.
Imagine Messi spitting a verse.
Maybe some Puyol on the hook.
Puyol's.
Who knows, man?
Xavi and Iniesta in there. Yeah, that would be jokes.
But yeah, it's so uncommon to hear that athletes are randomly featured on an album. But
why do you think they didn't make it commercially exploitable until 2103?
I feel like they just really wanted to, it's more about the concept and the idea of the album being so grand and so epic rather than the actual music, just because, think about if this would come out today rather than if it came out in 2014. Like, the hype and the anticipation is on such a grand scale, and I feel like, they just wanted to make people understand that music is kind of recyclable nowadays. You hear one album one week and forget about it the next. And, a clan, a collective that's iconic as the Wu-Tang, they deserve to have a piece of art that's so valuable. But the only thing is it fair for the fans to not be able to hear this? Because Method Man has actually gone on to say, like, fuck that album. Like, I do not support this album just because, it's not right that music that we put our heart and souls into will never be heard by the fans. And if it will be heard in the fans, I'll be dead when they hear it. So it kind of raises issues. So let me ask you that, man. Like, do you feel like it's a good idea to keep this stored up and, kind of secured in a vault, or should it be released to the public?
It should definitely be released to the public. It should be released, but I mean, like, even if you were to put it on streaming services, like, I would do it in a way where, like, you could only buy it on vinyl. You could only buy it on vinyl press, or you could only buy it on CD.
That's another thing too. Is like, I don't know.
I just feel as if people wouldn't appreciate it nowadays, right? Like, who gives a fuck? And like a lot of kids probably wouldn't. Like, if you would tell me about that, like, I would pay a lot of money for that. I would pay a lot of fucking money to hear that album.
Yeah, I definitely
would. And pretty ridiculous amounts. Like, and especially if it was like a special edition release. Like, there's so many different so many different things you could do with it. And like, even if you don't want to commercially exploit it, okay, fuck it, put it on streaming services.
Yeah,
just put it on streaming services.
They definitely should. It's just, at this point, I feel like the album shouldn't even be heard, just because
it's been sacred for so long, right?
Yeah, it has been, and it's sort of like a Detox situation where people view Detox almost as Dr. Dre's best album, even though they've never heard it, just because of that secrecy and the fact that it's kind of become an urban legend. You know what I mean?
I'm sure you could find versions of Detox though somewhere.
You could find leaks and stuff and snippets, but
there's a lot of songs on Detox that have gone to other rappers though that we could hear.
But you'll never get Dr. Dre's full vision, right? Same thing with, you won't get Wu-Tang's complete vision with the album, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's a different situation because we've actually heard songs that were supposed to be for Detox.
And there actually is a link to kind of a rough copy of Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, and I heard a bit of it, but I don't know if it's legit or not. But what I did hear sounded really fucking good. I'll be honest.
Where does this even come from? How did they even get that?
I don't know.
Where's it from? Where'd you find that? Reddit?
I found it on YouTube. I just searched it up, and there was a link, and it was like, I think 30 minutes of the album was shown on the video, but I have no idea to tell if it was real or not. So who knows at this point? But it's pretty cool to see how much hype and how much artistic value can be attributed to something that is not even heard. All you have is that packaging of that prestigious box, and the rest is up to your imagination.
And apparently they kept it in a hotel in Morocco, correct? They kept it hidden there. Well, that's a very interesting part too, because they didn't even want it in the country, not even in the continent.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching the episode. Listen, we got a lot of stuff going on here at NFR. You guys could join our community by joining our Discord chat. It's absolutely popping. The link is going to be in the bio, guys. And listen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification tabs. We're doing daily content here at NFR Podcast. Thank you guys for sticking in, and I'll see you on the next one.